Hello and welcome to today's episode of Modesty's Mortgage Masterclass. This is volume 4 of my masterclass on mortgages. Initially, I was doing this on YouTube only, but as I announced earlier that I was going to be doing this live on Facebook now from this Wednesday, so that we can reach a wider audience, and we can also reach a wider audience when we upload this Facebook live video on YouTube, so that we can have two channels of spreading this financial education. So you get to see me now twice a week, on Monday when I do the Modesty's Monday motivation class, and on Wednesday when I do the Modesty's Mortgage Masterclass. Both sessions are all abbreviated as MMM. So, well, you chose this for me. I put up an option for people to vote on what this masterclass will be called, and you chose it to be called Modesty's Mortgage Masterclass. So this is basically dedicated to mortgages and protection. And the idea and the aim here is to educate my clients and my followers and my fans and everyone who is associated or following me on mortgages and protection. I just felt there isn't enough education out there on mortgages and protection. I just felt we should create this avenue for people to learn more about mortgages. So I've done the first 3 volumes on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see the first 3 volumes. So this is volume 4, and from this volume onwards, we're going to be doing it live on Facebook. So my name is Ikenna Umezudike. I'm the director of Modesty Financial Consultants Limited, based in Luton, the United Kingdom. We are a whole of market mortgage advisory firm. We are also into investments and financial planning and advice, especially for those who live outside of the UK. So let's delve straight into why we are here today. So today we're going to be discussing purchasing properties at auction, buying properties at auction. So buying properties at auction, this is going to be limited to the processes in the UK, and the knowledge is about how the UK property auction market works. I don't know how it works anywhere else in the world, but I'm going to talk about what I know. So this is going to be of particular benefit to those who are looking to buy properties at auction in the UK, or who are preparing, or who are planning, or who are already doing that, to educate themselves more on what buying properties at auction in the UK entails. Now, buying properties at auction, there are a few things I just needed to understand about buying properties at auction. It is an alternative to private treaties. Buying properties on a private treaties, buying at auction is an alternative to private treaties. Remember the last volume 3 that I did on house buying processes, it was purely based on buying properties on private treaties, which is where you have properties advertised by estate agents or even by the owners directly, and then you get to putting an offer, and the owner agrees to the offer, and then the buying process starts. That is basically a private arrangement between you and the owner. Buying properties at auction is different. In this case, properties are auctioned in lots, and then whenever the lot comes up, the bidding is open to everyone, and then you bid and it goes to the highest bidder. Once the hammer goes down, the highest bidder has the property. You can find bargains at auctions, really. You can find deals that can also spoil your day. So there are all sorts of manner of properties are available on auction. You can find auction properties on the pages of newspapers. You can find them online. You can find them through auctioneers and their websites. You can find them on property portals like Rightmove and Zoopla and other. You can find property auctions in different places. So these are some of the media places you can find properties on auction. Repossessed properties and probate properties, properties with title defects, properties with planning issues, properties that are looking to be offset very quickly. So basically, people who bring properties to auction are people who have properties that can be improved upon, or that they want to sell very quickly, right? And you'll be surprised at the kind of properties that come to auction sometimes. It's not all about properties that are not mortgageable, or properties that cannot fit into the conventional mortgage. You can find properties that are really excellent, no work needed to be done, standard properties coming on auction. In fact, I went to show people around a particular auction property some time ago, and when I got into this property, I was asking myself, why is this property on auction? Why is it not going through a private treaty? Probably they might make more money if they go through private treaty. But there are several reasons people are willing to bring their properties to auction. It might be a case of the property being a probate property. It might be couple going through divorce and they want to get rid of the property quickly and just settle there. They can take it to auction and sell it off quickly. It might be property belonging to maybe a deceased parent or relative, and the people, the inheritance are going to sell the property quickly. They want to sell the property quickly, and those who have inherited the property want to sell it very quickly and get rid of that and sort out the estate. So there's a lot of reasons properties could come to auction, not necessarily because they are inhabitable or they are not mortgageable. Now, most auction properties have reserve. Most auction properties, or when properties come to auction, they come at a guide price. Now that guide price is what it is a guide price. It's not a selling price. So it's just meant to be a guide between for those who are going to be bidding on that property. So the guide price could be £100,000. The bidding could even start from £90,000. So guide price could be the selling price at the end of the day could be either 10% less or 10% more, or 20% less or 20% more. So it could be a percentage on either side. But whatever the selling price is, there is always what we call a reserve price. The reserve price is the price that the vendor, the owner of the property, has told the auctioneer the property must not sell below this price. If the auction is below this price, please do not sell. So that reserve price is what is also guiding the guide price. So if it is below that reserve price, the property doesn't get sold. So in some cases, if this property is not sold, or these properties are not sold, and maybe the bidding price or the winning bid is close enough to the reserve price, the bidders or the buyers could actually approach the vendor and try to negotiate something privately, just because they might just say, okay, it's just a little bit of difference between the reserve price and the winning bid. Can we come to an agreement? Can we come to a negotiation? It is very possible they can negotiate, something with the vendor if the reserve price is very close to the winning bid and it didn't sell. Okay, so the processes we need to know when we buy properties at auction. First of all, the moment there is a successful bid for any property on auction, make sure you have your deposits on that very day, because you will need it. Make sure you have your deposits on that very day. Make sure your mortgage is sorted as at that very day, because you need these things in place before you go to auction. That deposit will be paid the very same day. The moment the hammer goes down, you must have your means to pay your deposits on that day. So you can also fund your auction purchases through bridging and auction finance. These are short-term financial arrangements that you can make, because auction properties, you don't have a lot of time to complete on auction properties. You probably have 28 days from the day you win that bid to complete on auction prices or on auction properties. So is either your mortgage in principle is already arranged prior to the auction date, or you look for a short-term funding option that is very flexible and very quick, that can act very quickly and complete on that sale and on that funding within the given time. And most of these are done through auction finances and bridging finances. We've arranged a few of those for some of our clients. Bridging finance is a short-term funding option. It's usually expensive, but it's perfect and normally suitable for auction properties, because auction properties sometimes they don't fit into the conventional mortgage criteria. So what you need to do is to find a funding platform or a funding option that fits the bill. So bridging finance fits the bill for auction properties. Or there are auction finances that are basically designed for auction properties. You have to put those things into place before you even go for the auction. Now, survey and valuation must be carried out before the auction. So before you even get to the auction, make sure you arrange for your survey and for the valuation of the property. Now, before exchanges are done as well, there are legal works that are done before contracts are exchanged. Make sure you also do your pre-exchange legal work before you get to the auction, or before you even go for that auction. Now, you must have been handed the legal pack. There's a legal pack available before you go on auction. That legal pack, in that legal pack, a lot of the legal work is already even done in that legal pack. So the pre-legal work you're going to be done, most of it are done in the legal pack, but you can still do some extra pre-legal work if you so wish. Now, these preparations that you make are all paid for upfront. The valuation and the survey and the pre-legal work, they're all paid for upfront. And they do not come with any guarantee that you're going to win the auction or you're going to win the bid. So you bear it in mind that there are upfront costs that you're going to incur if you're going to buy any property at auction. Now, the second process is once that successful bid has been accepted and the hammer goes down, the second thing that needs to do is that contracts have to be exchanged. On the very same day, contracts are exchanged. And the moment contracts are exchanged, you are committed to that sale and you can no longer pull out. Right? So you bear that in mind that it is a commitment the very day that contract is exchanged, on that day of the auction. You can no longer pull out of that sale from that moment. Now, if you pull out of that deal, what's going to happen? You're going to lose your deposits, and possibly there might be legal actions taken against you by the vendor. And the vendor would want to recover the difference between the selling price and the purchase price from you if he brings the property back to auction again and it sells below the price you initially bought it. They will chase you most likely for that difference. So it's really a costly action to take, pulling out of the auction sale after contracts have been exchanged. Now, the third thing that will happen after contracts have been exchanged is that you have to pay your 10% deposit that very same day. I mentioned it earlier. So make sure you have the means to pay that 10% deposit on that very day. Now, this 10% deposit is non-refundable unless the buyer has misled you, or unless the buyer has misdescribed the property when they were describing it. That's the only occasion where you actually get a refund. Apart from that, that 10% deposit on that day is non-refundable. Once that 10% deposit is now collected, the next step to follow is completion. Now you have 28 days from that day to complete on the sale of that auction property. That's a short time to complete, ridiculously short, but that's what auction properties are all about. It's about quick sale, quick completion, and getting to the deal and get out of it as quickly as possible. So you've got 28 days to complete that sale. Now, once that completion is done, that is it. You have the property and the property belongs to you, and you pay the remaining balance upon completion within that 28 days. Whether it's via mortgage or bridging finance or you're buying cash, you have 28 days to complete all that. Now, to prepare for auction bids, what do you need to do? First of all, you've got to be in a position to complete the sale on that very day, meaning that your finances are already in order, meaning that you have the means to pay your deposits on that very day, and you've arranged for the finances, whether you're buying by cash or whether you are buying by mortgage or conventional mortgage. Yeah, the most significant preparation is readiness of finance. That is the most critical element of preparing for buy properties on auction. So you must be in a position to complete on that day. So what you've got to do is make sure you complete your survey, you finalize your mortgages, and the mortgage offer is ready, and the preliminary legal work has been carried out. These things get you ready to complete on that very day. That means you're already prepared for that auction sale to carry on and for that auction sale to be completed on that very day. You've done your survey, you've done all the legal work and all the pre-legal work that needs to be done, and you've done the valuation of that property, and you're satisfied that you're ready to put in a bid. You already know what you feel the value of the property is. That's very, very important for you to have that at the back of your mind. So I've mentioned about legal packs before. They are now a common feature of auction properties. So what legal packs contain are things like they contain the memorandum of sale, which contains the information of the buyer and the seller. The memorandum of sale. That memorandum of sale also, it contains the special conditions of sale of that property. If there is any special condition, that will also be in the legal pack. It contains the local search if and when available. So if the local searches are available, you will have them in the legal pack on that day. It will also contain the land registry search, and then it will contain proof of title. So that means that the vendor has the right to sell that property. There's a proof of the title to that property. It also contains copy of any lease affecting the property. If the property is sold, with a lease, it has a copy of any lease that is affecting the property. Now, you may, however, wish to commission your own legal checks. You may decide not to rely completely on the legal packs that you have. You are very much at liberty to arrange your own legal checks. So you do that, and you're very free to do that. Now, such checks have to be completed before the auction. You cannot carry out the checks after the auction and then come back and complain. No, you have to carry out all those legal checks before the auction actually happens. So any defects or issues that are arising after the exchange of contracts will not release you from the obligation of buying that property. The moment contracts are exchanged, any issues that arise after that, it doesn't release you from the obligation of buying that property. Now, the only exception to that is where those defects are as a result of the deception of misdescription of the vendor by the vendor. So if the vendor has knowingly deceived or misrepresented or misdescribed that property, that is the only situation where it will be considered that you can be let off the commitment of buying that property if any legal issues arise after that time. So you also become non-liable to complete the sale if there is a legal issue that could have reasonably been identified prior to exchanging that contract. So the only other reason that will make you not to be liable to buy that property or to be committed to buying that property is if there is a legal issue that reasonably should have been identified prior to the exchange of that contract, but that legal issue was not identified. If that is identified after the exchange has happened, you could, be released from the commitment of buying that property. But it has to be proven that that could have reasonably been identified prior to the exchange of contracts. Okay, what happens next is that the vendor is entitled to keeping your deposits if you renege on your contracts, if you renege on the promise to complete. After exchange, and you say, I don't want to go ahead again, I don't want to buy this property again, the vendor is entitled to keeping your deposits. And then if the vendor decides to bring the property back to auction and the property sells for less than it initially sold when you bought it, the vendor can come after you for the difference in that sale price. Now, there are some issues I need you to consider before you buy properties at auction. Number one is to know that there will be a substantial outlay. There will be a substantial financial outlay. What do I mean by that? You have to pay valuation, you have to pay legal fees, and all these costs have to be incurred upfront. So there are upfront costs that you have to incur upfront before you even go for the auction. And remember, these costs are not coming with a guarantee that you are going to win that bid at the auction. But bear in mind that these costs have to be paid off because the solicitors have to be paid, the valuers have to be paid. These are professional service providers. They are not relying on your ability to win the bid for them to be paid. Once you commission them to do a job, they do that job and you pay them upfront. Although this gets rid of unserious people in the bidding process, it simply means that potential buyers must have realistic prospects of winning the bid. So you must assess your chances of winning the bid and make sure it falls within your budget before you embark on this initial financial outlay before the auction. And then you must also go to the auction with a realistic budget, and please be ready to stick to that budget. Okay, do not overdo things when you get to auction. Be ready to stick to the budget that you have before you go to bid for properties on auction. It also makes sense for bidders to go to auction rooms and have a feel of that auction room and see what it is like before you actually go and bid for the property. Why don't you just go and, on a sightseeing of the auction room, go on the very day that auctions are happening, but you are not bidding on that day. Just go and have a feel. If that's your first time, know what the environment is like and how you can soak it up. Feel the excitement, feel the emotions, and the outburst of emotions in the room. And then know exactly how you can control your emotions when you finally come to bid. It makes sense for you to just have a feel of that environment first of all. The number two thing you need to know, you need to be aware of before you bid is the habitable standard of the property. Now, if the property needs some work to bring it up to a habitable standard or up to your standard, you need to ascertain the level of work and the costs of that work. It makes sense for you to go and view the property either with a builder, if you are not a builder or if you are not in the building profession. If you are just a business person, a property investor, you have no idea what building work entails, go with a builder and have a proper assessment of that property and the amount of work it needs to bring it to a habitable standard. If the property is already to a habitable standard, it also helps you to know the kind of financing arrangements you will be making. If that property is such that it's a standard property, no issues, and it can fit into a conventional mortgage, you can use a conventional mortgage to arrange it, but make sure that the conventional mortgage arrangement is one that can finish quickly and you have a decision in principle before you even go for that auction on that very day. Number three thing you need to be aware of is about deposits. You'll be aware that on that very day, the moment the hammer goes down, you are paying 10% of your deposit, and there is no pulling out after you've paid that deposit, and exchange of contract happens on that very day. It is non-refundable. That 10% deposit is non-refundable. That's a lot of money to lose. So you have to be very, very sure of what you are getting yourself into before you go for that auction, because the moment you pay that 10% deposit, there is no going back, and you're going to lose it if you pull out of the deal. Okay, so the number four thing that you also need to know or be aware of is what we call funds retention. Now, what do we mean by funds retention? If you're buying this property through a conventional mortgage, your lender can decide to hold on to the mortgage funds and not release it to you until certain conditions are met. If there are certain conditions about that property that the lender is not happy about, that the lender is not happy to release funds for, they might ask you to go and fix it. Maybe it's a title issue, they might ask you to go and fix that title issue. Maybe it's a structural issue, they might ask you to go and fix a structural issue, or maybe it's an issue of planning, and they might ask you to go and fix that planning issue before they release that fund to you. So that's a risky one, because if you do not fix that thing before the 28 days, and the funds are not released before the 28 days, it means you have breached the contract of completing on that particular property before the 28 days. And then you find yourself in some kind of legal issue, which is why most people who go to auctions don't use conventional mortgages to buy auction properties. What they do is that they buy auction properties using bridging finance or auction finance, and then remortgage it 6 months later onto a more conventional mortgage when they are sure that that property can fit into a conventional mortgage. For example, if you buy a property that is on lease and that property has less than 40 years lease on it after 25-year mortgage term, You cannot get a conventional mortgage on that. So what you can do is arrange for a short-term funding like a bridging finance or an auction finance, buy the property and then remortgage it when you have extended the lease on that property. And make sure you find out the possibility of extending the lease and the cost of extending that lease before you embark on that route, on that process. Okay, so these short-term funding options are designed to actually enable you complete deals quicker, and they are much more flexible than conventional mortgage options. Although they are more expensive, but they are more practical for a lot of the kind of properties that come to auction. Conventional mortgages are a lot cheaper. They will save you a lot of money, but they are very selective about the kind of properties they fund, especially if you're buying through auction. So be very careful when you're buying through auction and you're using a conventional mortgage to do that. Number 5 thing I need you to be aware of is on speculation. Now, there is no guarantee that you're going to win the bid for that auction property. So it's all based on speculation. It's come with no guarantee of a successful bidding. So when you are going there, do not go there thinking that you are guaranteed to. You just assess your chances of winning the bid and make sure you give yourself enough chance to win the bid before you embark on those initial financial outlays, because they are monies that you have spent and you can never get them back. So this is irrespective of the availability of finance to complete the purchase on the day. Even if you have your mortgage sorted, cash buyer, everything is ready, there is still no guarantee that you're going to win the bid on that very day. Number 6 thing I need you to be aware of is that there is no pulling out. We have mentioned that before. So once the hammer goes down, you are committed to buying that property and you can no longer pull out. If you pull out, you lose your deposit and most likely going to face legal challenges. Now, there's a modern auction method that I need you to be aware of as well. Now, this modern auction method is an online kind of auction bidding. It's like an eBay kind of bidding where people, bidders come and they have a timeline within which they have to submit their bid. There's a deadline. So as long as you submit your bid within that deadline, you are in the game. And then you can always track your bid and the activities of other bidders on that property. And as long as you are still within the bidding context, that's fine. So at the end of that deadline, whoever is the highest bidder gets the property. So people can actually increase their bid, live. They can increase their bid while the properties are available within that deadline. As long as it fits within that deadline, you can increase your bid and people can actually just track the activity online. It's like eBay kind of bidding. Now, upon a successful bid, if you win the bid, you are required to pay 5% reserve fee on that day. The very moment you win the bid on that day, 5% reserve fee goes out of your account. That 5% reserve fee takes care of the auctioneer's expenditures, and it doesn't come out of the final sale price or the final purchase price of that property. It is a reserve fee. Now, that reserve fee can be refunded. Yeah, that reserve fee can be refunded if the sale could not complete due to the vendor's fault. If it is the vendor's fault that the sale could not complete, you can get that 5% fee refunded. Now, when you win that bid, you have 28 days from the day you win the bid, after paying reservation fee, 28 days to exchange the contract. And then a further 28 days to complete. So there's actually like a 56-day window if you are using this modern auction bid. There's a 56-day window if you're using the modern auction bid. That 56-day window is now different from the traditional property auction that we have already discussed. Remember, in the traditional property auction, you have 28 days to complete the sale after you have exchanged contract on that very same day. But when in this modern auction method, which is done online, you have a 56-day window, 28 days to exchange contract and 28 days to complete. So if you have a longer time to finalize that purchase, actually you can actually use a conventional mortgage if you are buying online through this online auction method. But still, remember that there are certain shortfalls that the conventional mortgage has, where you're using to buy auction properties. Make sure that it fits that financing option before you go down that route. Now, if you withdraw from the sale, in this modern auction method, if you withdraw from the sale before the exchange of contracts, the vendor is not due any compensation, but you will lose your reservation fee. So you can see it's a little bit more flexible with this modern day online auction. But it depends on what you're more comfortable with. Some people want to be in the room, bid on the day, finish it within 28 days is done. Some people are more comfortable doing an online bidding because they have a deadline, they can do it at their own convenience. Whatever works for you, but just know that these options are available. Now I'm going to give you a few tips for buying properties at auction. Number one tip I'm going to give to you is to visit the property. There is no substitute really for visiting the property. Physical visit of the property, pay the property a visit and see exactly what you are buying. And you might be surprised at the things you can find out when you physically visit the property. When you visit the property, you can see exactly the structure, you can feel the property, you can see the room sizes for yourself, you can see the size of the garden. Do not rely on the beautiful glossy photos on the brochures of the auctioneers or what you see online. It makes a lot of sense to go and see that property yourself. Now, seeing the property makes you appreciate the level of work that is needed, if there is any work needed. And then, like I said, if you're not in the building profession, go with a builder when you're visiting the property and see what the property needs to be done before you go to buy it on auction. Second, number two tip I need you to know is for you to know your investments. Now, basically, you can't just sleepwalk into a property purchase on auction. You need to know exactly what you're buying. How do you do this? When you visit the property, have a knock on the walls, look at the lofts, check the basements. You might look at the rooms and you might give the room a knock and you might realize that one of the rooms hasn't got a window opening, but it's a room. And then you give the wall a knock, it's kind of a boarded stuff. Straight away you begin to think, looks like a room has been created out of a room. But that's why it doesn't have a window opening and then the wall. So it may look like the owner has done this without the consent or without proper planning permission, or whoever the vendor is might have done it without appropriate permission and planning. So it gives you an idea of what needs to do. You may have to apply for a retrogressive planning permission for that property, or you may decide to pull out entirely out of that property. But at least it gives you an idea of what you need to do. That means you may have to knock that wall down and make that room one room like it used to be. You have to factor in the cost of doing that when you are bidding and when you're preparing, doing your numbers on the viability of that particular property. So that's how you know your investment. But you can't know that investment if you are not physically there to have a taste and a feel of what exactly is going on there. Number three tip I need to give to you is to get a good broker. Get a good broker. If you're buying this property, if you're not a cash buyer, get a good broker who can arrange a quick finance for you, because property auctions, auction properties need really a quick and fast turnaround. A good broker who knows what he's doing. So what we normally do for our clients when they want to go to buy properties on auction is that we ask for all the details of the property. If possible, send us photos of that property, send us the address of that property, give us details of the project, the guide price or the probable purchase price of that property, and then we work out what financial means are most suitable for that particular property. If it's a standard property that doesn't need much work, not much title issues, we have the legal packs, you might actually get a conventional mortgage on it as quickly as possible and buy it through a conventional mortgage. But if it's a property that needs a little bit of work or it's not mortgageable, you will have to help you arrange a bridging finance or an auction finance to get through that, because these financing options are more flexible and are more accommodating for non-mortgageable properties. Before you ask what are non-mortgageable properties, there are properties that maybe do not have a bathroom, it's non-mortgageable. If it doesn't have a kitchen, it's non-mortgageable. If it has title defects, it's non-mortgageable. If it has structural defects, it's non-mortgageable. So there are properties that are non-mortgageable, but you can buy those properties using a bridging finance or an auction finance. So get a good broker who can help you do that and who can give you the right guidance and the right advice and arrange the right kind of finance for you to buy that property. Now, once the broker has all the details of that property, the broker can now go ahead and arrange you the right kind of finance. Now, agree a cast iron limit to your bidding, right? Do not go over it. Stick to that limit that you have set for every single property you want to bid for on that very day. Have a cast iron limit to that bidding and stick to it. In fact, if possible, go and bid with somebody. Let somebody go and let the person bid on your behalf. All right? If you're not sure of yourself, let somebody go and do the bidding on your behalf. Okay? And then the moment you win the bid, arrange for valuation immediately after winning the bid. Remember, you've got 28 days to complete on any property you buy on auction. Within that time, you've got to act really very quickly. So once you win the bid, arrange for a valuation to be taken, for a valuer to go and value that property, and straight away get on with the broker and let the broker do the rest of the financial arrangement. Number 4 tip I need to give to you on buying properties on auction is to read the legal pack. Amazing how people want to go and buy a property on auction. Trust me, there are people who don't read the legal pack. They get the legal pack, they just dump it somewhere. They are just waiting for the auction date for them to go in there and put in their bids and then hopefully win the auction. Hey, that legal pack is what contains the conditions and the special conditions of that property. When you are reading that legal pack, read it very carefully. Pay special attention to the section where it says special conditions, because that is where the details lie. The devil in the details is where it says special conditions. If you do not understand anything in the special conditions section, get in touch with your solicitor straight away and let them break it down for you. If you come across properties that's sold on lease, check out the lease, the length of the lease, the remaining lease on that property. If it's less than 80 years, it's really tricky. Make sure you find out how you can extend that lease and how much it will cost you to extend that lease. If you are buying through a conventional mortgage, anything less than 80 years is really tricky, because conventional mortgages, if you are buying a lease property through a conventional mortgage, the remaining lease after the mortgage term must not be less than 40 years. So if you've got a property that has 80 years lease on it, and you are taking a 25-year mortgage on it, after the 25-year mortgage, you still have 55 years left on it. So that fits the bill of a conventional mortgage. Yeah. But if you have a property that has 50-year lease on it, and you buy that property on auction and you win the bid, if you are buying it through a conventional mortgage, that is a deal breaker. You cannot get a conventional mortgage sorted on that property, because after the 25 years, you only have 25 years left on that lease, so it doesn't pass. Some people stick to 125 years lease minimum before they go to buy a property. But remember, this is if you are buying through a conventional mortgage. But if you are buying through an auction finance or a bridging finance, the lease length may not matter. But it's very important that you find out how you can extend the lease and how much it's going to cost you to extend the lease if you want to extend the lease. Find out those details, because that property will not forever be on bridging on auction finance. Those are short-term funding options. Remember that your aim is to get into that auction or bridging finance quickly and get out of it as quickly as possible, because they are expensive. You don't want to leave that property on bridging for 1 year, 2 years, and beyond. You are going to pay a lot in interest on that because they're really expensive. So the idea should be get in there with the bridging finance, buy the property, secure it, and then remortgage it after 6 months onto a conventional mortgage. That's when you begin to make profit on that property. So if you are buying through a conventional mortgage, ensure you go through all that and you have all that checked. Now, when you are checking that legal pack, there are certain conditions that you might see. Look out for outstanding bills that you're going to inherit. If you're going to inherit any bill, make sure you know what those bills are and how much they cost, and that you are going to factor them into your bidding when you're making a bid for that particular property. There are properties you buy. If you don't read that legal pack, you might have incurred some, you might inherit the council tax liabilities on that property, or there might be a charge on the property that whoever buys it has to pay on that charge. There might be a planning issue with that. There might be a penalty slapped on that property by the council. There might be so much hidden costs or liabilities that you'll be inheriting. Those will be listed in the special conditions, and make sure you pay attention to them and you identify them. If you identify them, find out, factor them into the cost of buying that property. Tip number 5 is go with a plan and leave your emotions behind. Okay? Go with a plan and leave your emotions behind. You have a plan, and that plan, the property you're going to buy on auction, will help you achieve that plan. Forget about the emotions. And when I talk about the emotions, don't be so emotionally attached to the property to the point that you say, I must buy this property at all costs. That is when people begin to make a lot of mistakes when they go to auctions. And the moment they become so emotionally attached to that property, they begin to overbid. You go over your budget, you go over your outline financial factors, and then you mess up everything. And then you come out of it because you've been sucked into the emotion in the room, you've overbid, and then you end up messing the whole plan up. So when you go into an auction, go with a plan and leave your emotions behind. Now, experienced auction buyers have advised that when you are going for an auction, for a property auction, the first few properties that are presented, leave them. Just let them float by. Those are for people with deep pockets. Yeah, wait in the room to settle in, and then people begin to bid reasonably, because the first few properties, those guys with deep pockets can afford to lose that much money and not even blink an eye. You know, but if you cannot afford to lose that much money, that's the advice from professional auction property auction buyers, to say just let the first few properties float by, and then let the room become a little bit reasonable, and then you get in the groove and get involved and start bidding. Okay, so when you do that, and then at the end of the day you do not win that bid, listen, don't go home disappointed. All right? You are not there to win it at all costs. There are many more property auction houses around in the UK, and many more property auction opportunities are going to come up. It simply means that that one didn't fit your plan. You will come across opportunities that are even better than the ones you felt you missed and you were killing yourself over. Opportunities come up every day. Properties come to auction every week, every month, every day. So if you miss out on that one, just wait for the next one, or go to the next auction house. Opportunities will come up. So don't go home disappointed thinking that, this hasn't worked and that's the end of the world. Also, write down your maximum bid. Yeah, if you are going to bid for 3 or 4 properties at that particular auction house, against each property, write down your maximum bid. How much are you willing to bid maximum on each property? Write it down against each property and stick to it. And like I've said before, you can go with somebody and just tell the person to bid on your behalf, and the person already knows what your maximum bid is. The moment he hits that maximum, don't go above it, stick to it. It works for everybody who goes, you use your sense, you leave your emotions behind, and then you go with that plan. Yeah, if possible, if you are bidding, if you are the one bidding, tell the person to pull you back when you are running out of, when you're veering out of line. The person would just pull you back and say, hey man, you've gone above your bid. It makes sense. Just in case you don't trust yourself that much, go with someone. Tip number 6: carry your toolkit. And what do I mean by carry your toolkit? I'm not talking about you being a builder or you being a carpenter or an electrician. I'm talking about the tools that will enable you to complete that sale on that day in case you win the bid. The first on that list should be your debit or your credit card, because on that very day you have to pay your 10% deposits. On that very day you have to exchange contracts. So you have to have the means to pay for on that day. If you don't have the means to pay, you've messed up the whole deal. Yeah, and then you may need a lot of paperwork. So go to the auction catalog and see the kind of paperwork that you may need, and make sure you go with them. Maybe proof of ID, proof of address, bank statements, whatever you need to present on that day. Go to the auction catalog and see what sort of documents that you need to come on with that day. If you are going to bid with someone and the both of you are going to be co-bidders on that, make sure you carry that person's documents if the person is not coming with you, or the person is there with you and the person is also carrying the their documents with them. So do not forget the paperwork and the documents you need if you are bidding with someone. Number 7 tip, finally, which is the final tip I'm going to give to you, is to get solicitors that know auctions. Trust me, not all solicitors know how to deal with auction properties. Solicitors, even without dealing with auction properties, are one of the most frustrating kind of professionals to deal with in properties. Don't get me wrong, there are very, very good, excellent solicitors out there, but there are very rubbish ones as well. And if you don't push them, they don't move anywhere. They're just like wheelbarrow. You push them, you drop them, they remain there until you come and pick them up again and push them again. So if you're buying properties on auction, auction properties are very unique, sensitive, specialized kind of property purchase. Not every solicitor can handle it, especially with a very short time frame that you need to complete on that property. So when our clients come to buy, when our clients come to ask us to arrange bridging finance, auction finance properties for them, we try and make sure that they are aware that their solicitor has to be on board, on the ball. And if they don't have good solicitors, we recommend one for them, because it's very, very critical to the completion of that. Now, apart from your solicitor being on the ball, you also have to be on the ball yourself. How? You have to make sure you supply or provide your solicitor with all the documents that they need pre and post auction. The documents they need before the auction to start doing researches, if they have to do searches, and the documents they need after the auction to complete the sale within the 28-day period. Make sure you respond to every of their correspondences as quickly as possible. That means you are also on the ball. You do not delay the solicitor's job and then blame the solicitor at the end of the day. And then always call them. Follow up with your solicitors as regularly as possible, getting regular updates on the auction, on the completion of the property, of the purchase, and knowing exactly where you are at every point in time. Same as your broker. Always call your broker, always follow up, always seek for regular updates. All right, folks, so that is it today for our Modesty's Mortgage Masterclass. This I hope has been helpful to you if you've been planning to buy properties on auction, and if you've been thinking of buying properties on auction, or if you're already buying properties on auction. I hope you've been able to pick one or two things as well. So please get in touch with us if you need any help with funding your property auctions and looking for the most effective and efficient way of financing your property auctions. Get in touch with us on our websites, modestyfinancialconsultants.co.uk, and send us a message, and we'll be at your service always. I am Ikenna Umezudike, and you can also reach me on my Facebook, with Twitter, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. So thank you very much for being there, and thank you to all of you who have been here and listening to us live, and some of you have even listened from as far away as Nigeria. Well done. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So please, I'm going to see you again next week when we're going to be talking about another mortgage topic. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be very, very interesting and educative as well. And I'm going to see you again on Monday during our Modesty's Monday Motivation. Until then, please stay safe in this coronavirus season, minimize contacts, and please isolate yourself if you have to. God bless you, and I hope we all survive this corona season, because it's scary, but hey, keep the faith. Thank you very much and take care. Bye now.